Hey everyone, Brer Rabbit in Mr. Man's Garden, an African American tale. What kinds of animals might visit a garden? What would you do if an animal came to your garden to eat your plants? Mr. Man had the finest garden around for miles. It was filled with scrumptious vegetables, just waiting to be picked. The problem was that Mr. Man wanted to keep all the vegetables for himself. At least he didn't want to share with Brer Rabbit. I have a picture for you here. There we go. One morning, Brer Rabbit decided that it was high time that Mr. Man learned to share. The vegetables in his garden were abundant, and it was just plain unneighborly of Mr. Man to keep them all to himself. So Brer Rabbit waited for Mr. Man to go off to town. "I'll be back this afternoon," Mr. Man called to his daughter, Miss Penny. "Mind the garden now while I'm gone, and be sure that rascal Brer Rabbit doesn't eat up all my tender squash." "Yes, Daddy," said Miss Penny, and she waved goodbye. As soon as Mr. Man drove away, Brer Rabbit hopped up onto the porch to introduce himself. "Hello, little Miss Penny," said Brer Rabbit. "My name is Pete Davis. I'm your daddy's old friend. I saw him yesterday, and he told me to come on over and take some of those delicious green onions from the garden." "Okay, as long as you're not Brer Rabbit, and as long as you don't take his ripe young squash, then you're welcome to our garden," said Miss Penny. "I'll tell my daddy that you stopped by." And Miss Patty let Brer Rabbit into the garden, where he took as many green onions as he could carry. When Mr. Man returned, he asked Mr. Penny who had been in the garden, and she told him that Mr. Pete Davis had been there. But she hadn't seen hide or hair of that rascal, Brer Rabbit. The next day, Mr. Man went off to town. He told Miss Penny to watch the garden again, please, and don't let anyone take the squash or the green onions, he said. Well, of course, as soon as Mr. Man left for town, Brer Rabbit showed up on the porch again. "Hello, Miss Penny," said Brer Rabbit. "I saw your daddy driving down the road. He told me that the tomatoes in your garden are not quite edible yet, but the carrots are just right. And he said, be sure to help yourself." "Yes, sir," said Miss Penny. "Help yourself to the carrots, just as Daddy said." And, Miss Penny let Brer Rabbit back into the garden, where he took an armful of fresh carrots. "Just what does this Mr. Pete Davis look like?" Mr. Man asked Miss Penny. Because Mr. Man came back from town and he knew something was not right. "Why, he has long ears and a funny twitchy little nose and a tail like a cotton puff." "Aha! I knew it!" roared Mr. Man. "Brer Rabbit has been in my garden. I'll get that clever rabbit." So Mr. Man fixed a box trap and put it smack in the middle of a big, beautiful vegetable garden. Then he concealed it with a few leaves. The next day, when Brer Rabbit came back to the garden, he saw a big sign on the gate that said, "Help yourself to the squash." So Brer Rabbit walked right into the garden. And just as he was reaching for the last, or the best, squash vine, he bumped into the trap. Snap! The box fell on him. Well, Brer Rabbit sat inside the box, worrying about what would happen when he was found. Suddenly he heard somebody sniffing around outside the box. "Brer Fox?" called Brer Rabbit. "Is that you?" "It's me, Brer Rabbit," said Brer Fox. "Why you in a box?" "Well, I'll tell you, Brer Fox," said Brer Rabbit. "Mr. Man has trapped me in here, and he's making me eat as much stew as I can stand. You better run now, otherwise he'll do the same to you." "Stew!" said Brer Fox. "I love stew." And using all his might, Brer Fox pried the box open and scrambled in. Brer Rabbit scrambled out at the same time, and the trap door slammed shut with the fox inside. Imagine how surprised Mr. Man was when he found Brer Fox inside that trap. Mr. Man chased Brer Fox around the garden, but he never caught him. And Brer Rabbit, why, he just laughed and laughed and ate some tender young squash for dinner that night. Thanks, guys.